Hi everyone, my name is Cornelia and I'm 17 years old. Tell me, what do you think about leading a healthy lifestyle? Watching what you eat, exercising, and only thinking positive thoughts is supposed to be good for you after all. But is it really? What if I told you that all of that can harm your health? Don't believe me? Then subscribe to the channel and listen to the incredible story that happened to me. I had always been plump, but that had never upset me. I liked to eat good food and lie in bed. The closest I came to doing sports was riding a bike for short distances, but I was happy. Not being skinny didn't bother me at all, and a lot of people even found me attractive. Except for my boyfriend Dave. He was also pretty chubby, but unlike me, he hated how he looked. I tried to support him and told him that I liked him the way he was, but Dave still thought he was fat. One day, my classmates and I went to a picnic. I brought my boyfriend along. Once out of town, we set the table and started having fun. I loved hanging out like that, eating delicious food, playing frisbee with my friends, and then lying in the sun. Everything was going great. We were having a good time and relaxing. When all of a sudden, we heard a crunch and a thud. Everyone turned around and saw Dave. He was lying on the grass looking confused, with a broken chair next to him. Apparently, a leg of the chair had broken off because Dave was too heavy. It was funny and all of our friends laughed. Not at my boyfriend, but at the situation itself. I immediately ran over and helped him up. However, as soon as he stood up, he immediately clutched his leg and groaned in pain. We couldn't understand what was wrong. He must have hurt himself in the fall. That's why we immediately packed up and took him to the hospital. He was examined by a doctor and laid on a bed in a ward. When I met the doctor in the hallway, he said Dave was fine. He had simply sprained his leg. He was given painkillers and prescribed complete rest for a few days. I went to my boyfriend's ward and asked him how he was feeling, but Dave was sad and quiet. No matter how much I tried to cheer him up, he didn't seem to be listening to me at all and was lost in his own thoughts. After coming back from the hospital, he spent several days at home. When I saw him again, he said he had decided to change. Dave couldn't bear to stay the same any longer. He started to eat less, took up sports, and generally became a fan of leading a healthy lifestyle. Of course, I supported him. Not because I thought he was fat, but simply because he was my boyfriend, and I was glad he was interested in something new. Dave became obsessed with his healthy lifestyle. You might be thinking that was great, but as time went by, it made my life miserable. Dave refused to go to parties because he would have to eat and drink there. When I suggested we go for a walk, he was always busy, either in the gym or in yoga classes. In the end, I couldn't stand it any longer and decided to have a serious talk with him. I wanted to tell Dave everything I was upset about. However, he was over the moon when I saw him next. He said he had lost 7 pounds and generally felt like a new person. "Cornelia, you should lose weight too. You're overweight as well, after all," he said cheerfully. I said I'd never thought about it. And then Dave tried to convince me to do it. He said it was great when couples shared a hobby. Maybe he was right. We could go shopping together or visit gyms and seminars for those who wanted to lose weight. I liked the idea and agreed. I started to eat less, took up sports, and stuck to a strict daily routine. I had to stop going to parties. On the other hand, I began to spend a lot of time with my boyfriend once again. He told me about different ways to lose weight and how I would look in a year. To be honest, it motivated me a lot. I decided to lose weight at any cost. I started listening to Dave, but it was getting harder and harder for me every day. He made me go to aqua aerobic classes, which I hated, and told me to only eat fruits and vegetables, even though I couldn't live without burgers. We also lost a lot of friends because Dave was only ever talking about his healthy lifestyle, and it had become very boring very fast. It was little wonder that at one point I got really sick and tired of it all. I couldn't stand it any longer and told Dave everything. I didn't care anymore. I didn't want to be hungry and work out all the time. I wanted to eat everything I wanted again and lie on the bed with a tablet in my hands. I decided to stop trying to change because I felt really happy the way I was. I told Dave that I didn't trust him or his diet plans. We were never going to become slim, We just had to learn to accept ourselves. As he listened to me, he looked angrier by the minute. After I finished, he said that I had betrayed him and we no longer had anything in common. Great, then we should break up, I said angrily. We're done. You've become insufferable. That's how our relationship ended. To be honest, I felt relief when I got back to my life as it used to be. I began to enjoy my favorite foods again, sleep as much as I want, as I needed, and generally do whatever I wanted, and not what I had to do in order to lose weight. The school year ended and the summer holidays began. I was having so much fun. Almost every day I went to a picnic or a party with my friends. Long story short, I was enjoying my life. So much so that by the end of the year I gained a few extra pounds. But it didn't bother me at all. I was happy. I'd heard nothing about my ex-boyfriend during the summer and didn't know what he was up to. And so, when the new school year began, I went back to school. I was running late as usual when I suddenly noticed a crowd in the hallway. I felt curious and moved closer to take a look at what they were gawking at. My classmates were admiring a slender guy standing in the center. I thought that handsome guy had been transferred to our school, but then I recognized him. It was Dave. I couldn't believe my eyes. Over the summer, he had changed completely. He had done it. For the rest of the day, the girls at my school did nothing but talk about how attractive my ex-boyfriend had become. At home, I looked at myself in the mirror and realized that I had made a huge mistake. Dave had been right. If I'd listened to him, I would have been completely different now. Instead, I had dumped him, and now all of the girls at school wanted to be friends with him. Moreover, when I went to his Instagram page, I saw that Dave now had an army of fans. They had been following his progress and admired him. My ex posted something motivational for those who wanted to become slim almost every day. I spent the whole night thinking it over and decided I had to get Dave back. I was ready to change for him. I knew I would have to make an effort to get such a handsome guy as my boyfriend, so I went back to starving myself and working out again. It was so hard to get back into the habit. One day when I came to school, I saw a TV crew in the hallway. They were interviewing Dave. He had become a real celebrity. There was a crowd of students standing around him. I crept closer and listened to what he was saying. My ex-boyfriend was telling them how he'd managed to pull himself together and get such an amazing body. When asked about how his girlfriend felt about his transformation, Dave smiled and said he didn't have a girlfriend. I was ecstatic, so he was not dating anyone yet. I had a chance. Closer to Christmas, our school was supposed to hold a festive ball. I realized that it was my chance to charm my ex. I exhausted myself at the gym more than ever, almost stopped eating, and constantly felt so weak. I could barely stand. I felt miserable, but I endured it for Dave's sake. By the time the ball came, I lost as many as 11 pounds and ordered a beautiful dress that emphasized my waist. I was hoping it would impress Dave and show him how sorry I was for doubting him. Finally, it was the day of the ball. I came all dressed up and saw Dave. He looked very elegant and refined. I knew the moment had come, so when the music started playing, I asked him for a slow dance. Dave smirked a bit arrogantly, but agreed. We started dancing, and I was about to tell him how sorry I was for what I'd done, but then something went wrong. Dave turned pale and looked unwell. "Dave, what's wrong?" I asked, startled, but he didn't say anything. His eyes rolled back, and he lost consciousness. I shouted for someone to call an ambulance at once. I didn't know what was going on and held him until the doctors arrived. They took him to the hospital. Of course, I went along. There, he was examined and put in the same ward he had been lying in 6 months before that. I stopped a doctor in the hallway and asked him what had happened to my boyfriend. He looked worried and told me that Dave had been taking very strong weight loss medications for the past few months. They had exhausted all of his strength, and now he had serious issues with his organs. He was going to need long-term treatment. I couldn't believe he would go to such lengths. I snuck into his ward to see how he was feeling. Dave was already awake. I said I'd understood why he had done all of it, but I asked him to stop and not put himself in danger for my sake anymore. However, he smirked and said, "What has that got to do with you? I did it all for myself. I only like myself when I look like this, and you still don't understand me at all." I tried to say something else, but Dave interrupted me and asked me to leave. He was still feeling hurt by my betrayal. I left but couldn't stop thinking about him. I wanted him back, but he wouldn't forgive me if I just stayed the way I was. At the same time, I didn't want to torment myself with weight loss drugs. After all, I had seen what that leads to. And so now I need your advice. Write in the comments down below. What should I do? Should I risk my health for a guy?